pretty good election for the Republican Party in California. They picked up 2 seats they had lost in 2018 in Orange County with the election of Young Kim and Michelle Steele. They also picked up a seat that they had lost in 2018 in the Central Valley of California. And it appears Mike Garcia, the Republican up at the District 25, that's Santa Clarita, Simi Valley, he's barely holding on to a lead over Democrat Christy Smith. All this being done under the watch of the new chair of the California Republican Party, Jessica Millan Patterson. She joins us with her assessment of this campaign. So, Madam Chairwoman, you told George Skelton of the LA Times that you wanted these candidates to focus on local issues and not get caught up in Donald Trump and the national debate. Is that how you won these seats?
I think we have been incredibly disciplined and talking about local issues. I think that here in California, California Democrats have owned it. They have owned every single failure when it comes to what has happened to our Golden State, whether it's affordability or, our K through 12 education system that is failing our children, or the homeless crisis. And for us to be here in a place where, 2 years ago, no one was predicting that we would win back seats, and to have these wins, focusing on a local message and what was happening in each one of their communities and how the Republicans had a different answer to that was what led to our success.
Right, but there's some concern that you brought out a lot of low propensity voters who won't show up in the midterm elections, and that 2022 is going to be a real challenge for those candidates.
I'm not concerned about it. I'm encouraged by it. There were certainly members of we had the highest turnout that we've ever had here in California. And for a long time, California Democrats and the mainstream media told Republicans here that we couldn't win when it was a high turnout. We couldn't win unless it was a special election or a record low turnout. And we proved them wrong. So I think this bodes well for California Republicans. We not only won in congressional seats that you mentioned, but in addition to that, we won on the ideas. When you look at the propositions statewide, there was a rejection of Prop 15, which would have been an $11 billion tax increase on California property owners that would have increased the cost of everything in the middle of a pandemic. We were on the right side of that. When we talk about Prop 16, which would have brought back affirmative action here, that failed. When you look at Prop 22, which really got across the finish line with a lot of help from Republicans throughout the state, it helped us to say this is a rejection of AB 5 and the attack on individual contractors in the gig economy. When you look at Prop 25, which would have ended cash bail, that also failed. It would have made our streets less safe. So we're also winning on the ideas. And that, I think, along with the amazing candidates that we recruited this cycle and that we will recruit next cycle, is going to make a difference for California Republicans again.
Right, but you have counted on votes out of suburbia to win elections in Simi Valley, your district. It's nothing but suburbs, Santa Clarita, Simi Valley, the Antelope Valley, and you barely won in that seat. Are the suburbs turning to Democrats these days?
Well, we also flipped the assembly seat from Democrat to Republican here. So I think what we're showing is that we are taking the fight to Democrats all over the state. I think that we will see in this next cycle, once we have redistricting happening, where the changes within each one of these districts happens. And you're right when you talk about candidates. We couldn't have found a better candidate than naval fighter pilot Mike Garcia. We could not have found a better candidate than Supervisor Michelle Parks Steele or Assemblywoman Young Kim. It starts with those great candidates. It's the right message, and it's delivering these messages to every part of the community throughout our state.
So there's a Citizens Commission in California that's responsible for redrawing the district boundaries for the state. Now, that's key because that often determines who gets elected, what party controls it. 10 years ago, you guys got rolled by the Democrats, who knew how to work that system, that they were able to figure out how to persuade this commission to giving them the kind of borders that would help ensure a very large Democratic majority in the state. Are you trying to now work the system, and whether or not that could increase your numbers here in the state?
You hit the nail on the head. These boundaries that are drawn will dictate what our status is over the next 10 years. So it's critical that we make sure that the voices that weren't heard in the last redistricting are heard, and it's going to be incumbent upon us and our partners to make sure that happens.
So the head of the California Republican Party in this state, I have to ask you, there's been an election. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris won. They will be sworn in on January 20th. Do you believe it's about time the President of the United States, Donald Trump, acknowledged that and allowed for a smooth transition to power?
Conan, I think right now there are so many people that are questioning our election. We lived through the last 4 years where people would utilize the hashtag #NotMyPresident or talk about Russia collusion. And right now we are in the process, as you know, here in California, we accept ballots up until 17 days after the election, as long as they're postmarked by election day. So we are still counting in races. We are still accepting ballots in races. And I think that right now, if we want to make sure that everybody is confident in this election cycle, we need to let play out all of the legal challenges. And then, of course, the peaceful transfer of power is something that is absolutely integral to our democracy.
We'll leave it there. Jessica Millan Patterson, the chair of the California Republican Party, thanks for taking the time.
Thanks so much, Conan.